To get access to the administration area in SharePoint within Office 365, you'll need to have the appropriate rights. Now, when you do and you log into your tenant, you'll see that there's an additional option here called Admin. So if we select that, that will take us to the Admin Center, and then down on the left we see we have a number of admin options here. Now, right down the bottom is additional admin centers. Now, if we select that and then scroll down, you'll see that we have an option here to open the SharePoint admin area. Now, when we do so, you'll see that we get an experience where we have a list of our sites, we have a ribbon bar across the top, and we also have a menu item on the left hand side here. Now, you will note at this stage that some of the newer SharePoint team sites that were created with Office 365 groups and teams do not yet appear in this older style console. The reason for that is there is a newer console coming shortly that will show all the team sites no matter where they have been created. So think of this as a way to administer just the pure SharePoint team sites that weren't created with Microsoft Teams or Office 365 groups. Now, to make any changes to an existing site, we simply select that. You'll see that our ribbon then highlights. We could go in, for example, and select the sharing. We could then make changes to the sharing for this site if we wanted to, and we could go in, for example, and change the number of resources. So if we double that and make that 600, for example, and then simply save that, that will then update for our site collection. Now, you notice that when we do an update, you'll get the green spinner here indicating that those changes are being rolled out to that site collection. It may take a moment or two for that to transpire. So again, remember, to make a change, all we need to do is select the site collection here and then select the option up the top from the emails that are there. Now, again, the idea here is we can also go in and, like I said, we can look at the properties. So if we click on the actual hyperlink that is the team site, you'll see that we get the site collection properties. We'll get the URL, we'll get the primary administrator, as well as the number of resources and storage space in use. Now, one of the things you may want to do is you may want to change the permissions. So again, you can change the ownership of a site. So again, select the site, go into owners and select manage administrators here. Now, you'll see here that we have two options. We have a primary site collection administrator and additional site collection or secondary site collection administrators. Now, both of these users, anybody who appears in these two items, will have complete rights throughout the site collection from end to end. Now, the difference here with a site collection administrator is they won't appear in any of the permissions inside the SharePoint team site. So they will have full permissions, but they won't be listed anywhere in the properties. So again, if you want to go in and basically give yourself full admin rights to a SharePoint team site, the way to do it is simply go in and add yourself as an administrator. Now, note that you can only have one primary site collection administrator, but you can have as many secondary ones as you desire. Simply a matter of going in there and then adding that user, and that permission will then be applied throughout that site collection, and that user will then have full rights through that environment. Now, you'll see if we want to create a new team site, we can basically do that here. We select new and we're taken to a new private site collection. So again, this is very much like other options here in Office 365. We'll give it a name, a web address, and we'll select a template to use and the resources and administrator and so on. And we can create a new team site here. Now, remember that if we do that using this interface, we will get a pure team site. We won't get a Microsoft team and we won't get an Office 365 group either. So that's great if you just want a pure team site or an intranet or whatever. Now, if we go in here and also we can delete a site collection. So if we select delete, it will go to the recycle bin for 30 days. Once it's in the recycle bin, it can then easily be recovered if required. Again, we can look at the properties. We've managed the users. We've looked at the sharing. So if we go and have a look at the sharing here, you'll see that we have four options. We have the option to not share outside the organization. Again, to share with external users that are already in our directory. Again, those the users that receive invitations and sign in, so they're authenticated. and the final option is to allow any external users, including anonymous ones as well. And if we want, we can go in here and limit the external sharing by domain, and again, this is again giving us a summary of what that is. Now we can go in and make that change to any of our site collections here, and that determines who has rights from outside our organization to come in and use resources in that environment. Now, one of the other important settings that we need to look at here is on the left hand side down the bottom there is an option here called settings. So if we go in here, you'll see that there are a number of global settings we can set here. So we can hide or show the OneDrive for Business or the sites items. You'll see that we can set the storage to automatic or manual, right? So if you want to manually add additional storage to sites to top it up, you can do that, but normally most new site collections are set to automatic. They will just consume additional space from the pool as required. You can force a new or classic experience for OneDrive. Same thing, we can force a new or classic experience for our SharePoint lists and libraries. Same with our admin center. We determine whether the Office graph takes information from here, and again we can determine whether our social collaboration is going to be the old style SharePoint newsfeed, or we want to make it yammer.com. So when they go to the social side, they'll be taken to yammer.com once we save these settings. Alright, you'll see that we have the ability to configure streaming, site pages, global experience version settings, information rights management, site creation, sub-site creation, custom scripts, and so on all the way down the bottom. So lots of different options that you can enable here. So once you've made any changes, select OK, and that will apply it to our overall environment. Now again, we can go into an option here called sharing, where we can go in and we can control globally how our information is shared outside our organization. So we can do it at each individual site collection, but here's an option here that allows us to control that throughout our tenant if we want. And again, you'll see that we've got notifications here when we want to get information about that sharing taking place. So again, those options are in the sharing option on the left hand side here. The other one to note that is worthwhile having a look at and making sure you've got it configured the way you want is the settings option. So again, the recommendation here for best practice is that if you have a site which you wish to keep internal, so users within your tenant are the only ones who have access, you should set that to do not share outside your organization. And then if you do want to share information, best practice to create another site collection, maybe called extranet, and set that to allow external sharing. So you would have an intranet, which is internal to your business only, and an extranet, which then basically supports external users. Your internal users can get to both, but external users are limited to the extranet, means they can't accidentally end up with your internal information if required. So in summary, provided that we have admin access, we can go to the admin button in our web portal. That will take us to the admin center. We can go to the SharePoint admin center. That will take us to this environment where we'll see our traditional old style site collections. Remember, there is a new portal, a new interface coming shortly that will show everything that has been created for SharePoint, including those created by Office 365 groups and teams. But for this point in time, the only sites that will appear in here are those that are created as standalone SharePoint sites. You can create new SharePoint sites using that directly here using the private site collection. You can delete, you can look at the properties, you can change ownership, vary the sharing, and again monitor and change things like the server resource quota. Remember, if you need to delete a whole site collection, everything within it, you can do it from here and it will go to the recycle bin. The two options on the left hand side that you should consider and have a look at to make sure they are correct for your organization is the one here called settings, and also the sharing option here. Lots of other options that you can select, but these are a little bit more advanced. But again, have a look at those and see if they need to be configured to suit your organization. And remember that if you want to get access to this admin console, you will need to have the appropriate rights to be able to do this.